let's talk about your marriage specifically. Well, let's just get right into it. We're going to talk about kind of some hobbies and things that the two of you share together that really keeps the two of you connected and unified in your marriage. So what are some hobbies that you guys like to do together?
We love football, both of us. We love football. The only problem with football is that it's not all year long. And so the season has come to an end. So we're a little, we're going to be a little bored. We'll have to get creative. But basically, we just like hanging out together, just whatever we want to do.
So, Miss Jeana, you would say you've entered into an area of depression now since football is over.
Yes, it's sad. It's
Yeah,
really
I can
sad.
see the depth
Yes.
of depression on your face even now. I'm sure that Pastor loving football. So tell us, what is his favorite football team? Because I've been told that it's Texas. All right, Pastor, maybe you better answer this question. What's your favorite
I'm an
football
Arkansas
team?
Razorback fan.
Oh, he's a Razorback fan. Okay.
I've been a Razorback fan for over 26 years.
So
I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. If they win, however, they're not winning. So I've even rooted for horrible teams like the Washington Redskins this year and others.
wow. Well, I can tell you right now, being a Cowboys fan is almost like being a Kansas City Chiefs fan. We haven't had much to celebrate in the years.
I wouldn't go that far, however. Whatever make you feel better.
Now I'm trying to feel better about my own football team. So, Pastor and Jeana, we know today that people have got some really chaotic schedules. I mean, you talk about the schedule that just the two of you carry, as well as the chaotic schedules that a lot of these people carry. Can you kind of give us some insights to people who are dealing with chaotic schedules and challenges today within their marriage? What advice would you give them to stay connected and unified?
I believe it all comes down to priorities. I think every family has to determine what is important to them. And while I believe there is a biblical precedence given to us, it still comes back to what every family believes. Jeana and I have chosen to live our lives based off of what we believe are priorities that are right. Our personal walk with Christ, our family, our church, and football.
Now, is that in priority just listed
Pretty
there?
well, yes.
Okay.
It is. When we raised our children, we did three things really well: Jesus, church, and football.
All right, now, Miss Jeana, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I would just say that, our world today offers a lot of opportunities for millions and millions of things to do, to occupy our time with. And I think if you're not intentional about living life together as a couple, you can very easily live separate lives. And sooner or later, I think that catches up with you. So it is a matter of priorities and just being committed to live life together.
And I love that word, intentionality. Because if we're not intentional in our lives today, as you've just suggested, we can let our schedules dominate us instead of us dominating our schedules. Valentine's Day is obviously known across the nation and across the world as a time for couples, but there's lots of single men and single women out there today. What advice might you give a single career woman or a single career man about dating in today's world?
My first piece of advice to that would be, remember that you're going to marry who you date. You date a jerk, you're going to marry a jerk. You date a crazy family, you're going to marry into a crazy family. That's just the way life is. And I think that single adults need to determine what I'm looking for and what is right for me. And there are a lot of places that single adults can look for that today. It's hard to imagine. We would have never thought this a decade or so ago, but many Christian singles go to the web, social networking opportunities, to discover people to date or to marry. Somebody asked me not long ago what I think about that. I really don't know what I think about that. I I mean, it's different, but I mean, I have also seen some of those couples fall in love, and I mean, they're very, very happy today, and they're married. So I'm not going to criticize the methodology, but I would just tell you that I believe single adults need to be very careful not to be persuaded by the culture, because if you have to go to a bar to get a date, then there's no telling what in the world you're going to marry. And if you will hang out at the right places, sooner or later, you're going to find the right person.
That's a great word. Miss Jeana? Yeah, absolutely. You can give it up for an answer like that. I love it. So, Miss Jeana, today with marriages, what would you say are maybe some of the missing elements of communication or values in marriages today?
Well, first of all, I think just the value of committing yourself to another for a lifetime. That's desperately missing, I think, in today's world. And the number of couples who have been married 50 years or more is becoming more rare in our society. And I just think making a commitment that the good or the bad or whatever, that you're going to stick it out and just stay together, be just commitment. And I think social media can be a wonderful thing these days, but it can also be a detriment, I think, to marriages. There's maybe too much of this or too much of this and not enough eye-to-eye contact.
And I think that's a great word. You know, I've heard of a lot of families that have the rule that when it comes to dinner time, where communication is happening, that the rule is you take the cell phone, you take the iPad, the Kindle Fires, whatever, you unplug them, you set them aside so there can be communication across the table. Pastor, you guys have been married for 36 years. And that's a long time. Let's just say that's a long time. And that's good, because we're talking about commitment
buddy, it's
here.
a long time.
So in 36 years, and a lot of us out here, we've faced difficult times in our lives. Can you share with us about a difficult time that the two of you have had in your marriage over 36 years, and how did you deal with it?
Well, I believe there have been several, and it's been more not about our marriage itself as what we've been confronted with. I think obviously one of the most difficult times we ever went through was when Jeana was a very young woman at age 35, and she was diagnosed with cancer. And we went through 1 year of radiation and strong chemotherapy and the change of her body. And we had two very young children then. She would remember their age more than I would. That was a very, very challenging time. The church was growing. We were public. She was very public, obviously. And that was an extremely challenging time. But, you know, we've also had challenging times in leadership. You lead anything, you go through good and not so good and bad. And I've been here so long, I've seen us be in our best. I've seen us be at our worst. At times, I've been a part of both of those episodes. And sometimes that's been very grueling in our lives and even in our marriage, not towards us, but it's, you know, one of us go through something, we both go through something.
Absolutely. Miss Jeana, when you've seen Ronnie struggle in the 20 to 36 years that y'all have been married, what do you specifically do that you believe just encourages Dr. Floyd and really uplifts his spirit that someone else might maybe take out of here and say, I think I could do that?
Well, I think the best thing that a wife can do is just be supportive and verbalize that support to them regardless of what it is. And even though you may not understand to the depths that they personally are walking through it, just knowing that you should be his best friend. He should be able to communicate that to you, and you should be sympathetic and just supportive. And in the face of criticism, which we've lived with that a lot, you know, it's as a spouse, as a wife, it's really difficult to hear people say things about your husband that aren't true. but just remaining loyal to him and obviously never chiming in with the criticism or thinking, oh, they're probably right, but just remaining supportive.
Have you considered they're correct? Yes.
Well, you're the first one to say we can all learn from our critics, so anyway.
No doubt about it. And she does a great job at saying the right thing. And I really think that one of the great things a spouse can do when their mate walks through those times is to not offer a lot of advice unless that person wants their advice, but to be there and to listen if listening is there. I do think a lot of men, especially, and I don't know about ladies, but I do believe that a lot of men make a real mistake, Eric, in unloading everything upon their wife. I don't think that it's prosperous to my wife to know every bit of trash about people that I know. Mm-hmm. Or when I'm going through something that is very challenging, she may know many times I'm going through something, but there are many times I say, you don't need to know, you don't want to know, mm-hmm. Trust me. And we leave it there. She doesn't sit there, well, you don't love me, and why don't you tell me, honey, you don't need to carry it. And I think a lot of guys put stress on their spouse in areas they don't need to. Yeah, and that's the way we've operated along the way. And if there's a time I want to share it, she'll hear it.
Okay, so let's talk for just a minute about how you get to that point, because I think you guys have, we've talked about something pretty important here, and that is the aspect of communication. Communication is an art form, and you really have to learn that skill over time in communicating. How do you get to the point to where, Miss Jeana, and I'm going to direct this question at you, where pastor desires to protect you, and yet you stop and know when to ask and when not to ask? How do you get to that point in a relationship?
Well, he has protected me through the years, and that's been of a huge advantage for me to be able to walk in the church doors and not know everything that he carries. We decided many years ago that if I didn't need to know it, that I wouldn't know it. And I don't need to know a lot of things as far as the details. God didn't call me to pastor the church. He called me to walk by his side, and God equips him to bear the burden. And although that is very heavy sometimes, he didn't call me to do that. And so I'm supportive to him, but I think the times when we've known when the times, and it's not because I'm not confidential, because I know how to keep my mouth shut, but it's just that I'm not made to bear those burdens the way that he is. And so we know when those times are, and usually, and we've had some very heavy and some very difficult circumstances through all these years of ministry where I did have to know the details. Wished I didn't, but I had to. But just for the benefit of the number of people I think that affects others' lives is when I have to know the details of certain situations. But if it's not helpful for me to know, I don't want to know.
All right.
I don't want to know it.
So let's move to talking about marriage and family today. We've talked about love. We've kind of talked about your marriage. Let's talk about marriage and parenting and family today. Dr. Floyd, we know that the family is under attack. And that's, we can look at the news. We can just look at society today and see that it's under attack. What do you think are some major threats to the family today from your perspective?
I think, first of all, about marriage, and Jeana's addressed this a little bit, and she's really big on this. She will tell ladies this again and again and again, and she can talk about it in a moment better than I can, is that a lot of couples live their own lives. They live separately, and they do not live dependently. That's not the way marriage is. If you meet any man or woman who has ever lost their helpmate, their partner after 40, 50, 55 years or so, half of them is gone. I mean, they feel enormous weight because they don't have the privilege to go home to talk to someone about something, or to just simply go on a drive and communicate, or just not communicate. Just look at the beauty that's around you. So living life together is very, very, very important to us. And so I think that's a real threat today. I would encourage everyone here today, determine if you're married, hang out with the person you're married to. That person needs to be your best friend. If they're not your best friend, who is? And so with that, when it comes to children and parenting, that's a whole different issue, and I'll be glad to speak to that at the right time. But let's stay with marriage for a moment, okay?
Well, I want to ask something, because you both have commented about how to make a marriage successful, it takes two people who desire to be with one another, to stay connected with one another. Pastor, you used the word best friend. What makes the two of you, Miss Jeana, I want you to answer this. What makes the two of you best friends?
I think in any marriage, there's going to be self-sacrifice and a denial of what you want, and I don't think that ever ends. We may learn to cope with it better through the years and be accommodating to that person, but just a denial of always wanting what you want and looking at the interest of that other person, and just making a life together, having common interests, enjoying the company of one another. I can honestly say I love my children, I love my grandchildren, I love my daughter-in-laws, but there's nobody that I'd rather spend time with than him, and that's the truth.
She's your A girl and you're her A guy. How about that?
Love is blind, baby.
In this case, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
All right. So when we talk about becoming best friends, and we talk about the time that the two of you spend together, Pastor, from your perspective, what makes Jeana your best friend?
I can trust her. Trust is pivotal. We've walked through a lot. We feel like we're pretty cemented together, permanent. We don't have to do a lot to enjoy. I mean, there are times that we just like to go and drive. One thing that we've done, and this is probably crazy, but we've done it and we love it, and we're pretty protective of it. But probably I started thinking the other day, I think since 1985, that's a long time ago. Did y'all hear that? 1985.
I was just getting into college about that.
Exactly. I'm surprised.
That I went to college?
But either way. But in 1985, I started taking every Friday off. And I started spending every Friday with Jeana and my family. I still do that today. Rarely, unless I have a funeral, not my own, but someone else's, or I have, I don't take a lot of speaking engagements. Mm-hmm. I turned down a lot of speaking engagements on Friday because, speaking comes and goes. There's always going to be something out here. But I've been very committed to our Friday. Because Saturday, man, I'm getting into game day. That's my game. Sunday's game day for me. And, so I'm in the mode by midday. I'm rolling. And, she kind of decreases, and I'm kind of moving to a whole different arena. And so with that, Friday's big to us. And so we spend it, and you'll see us run around a little bit. Sometime we'll go hang at a movie. We ain't gone to a lot of movies lately because they're all R-rated. It's unbelievable. It ticks me off. So anyway, but we, we drive around, we go eat, or we just go back home.
So let's talk application for just a minute, because there's lots of families represented here today. And we want to maybe give one of these families or a lot of these families something to walk out of here with. So what would you say to a couple who right now might be struggling? What would you say to them? Here is how you can begin to become one another's best friends again. Let's just say there's a couple out there that says, I'm at that stage where I'm maybe not feeling like I'm my partner's best friend, my husband or my wife's best friend. How can they recapture that? So the question is to either one of you.
I think you have to go back to the commitment that you made with marriage. I think you need to probably go down deep on why you might not feel that way. If you're feeling that way, there's a problem somewhere, and that could be a million different spots to go to, but identify your problems. And every marriage is going to have stuff in it. Every marriage is going to have stuff. It just is. And I think it's not so bad to have stuff, but it's when you don't work through it. And then after a period of years and decades, and you've let the stuff pile up and you've never done business with it, that's when people walk away from it. And so you've got to deal with it and not push it on the back burner, but deal with it and go down to where the problems are and identify them, and then both parties have got to be committed to work on it. If one or the other's not, you're kind of in a problem.
Man, but I love that. Deal with it as it comes and deal with it immediately instead of, like you said, pushing on the back burner. Pastor, anything to add to that?
You got to spend time together. That's all I got to say.
Well, there you go.
You can't have, if you really like somebody and love somebody, you got to spend time with them. And that's part of it. We spend time together.
And I love the fact that you said spending time doesn't necessarily mean doing anything extravagant. It could just be getting in the car and driving down the road and looking at scenery. You all have been successful in raising two great kids in Josh and Nick. So tell us some of the major key factors. And I want to start with you, Miss Jeana, in raising successful kids.
Well, we're blessed, and we didn't do everything right. And so I don't want anybody thinking that we think we did it all right, because I know we made some mistakes. But I think consistency in our parenting skills and styles, and Ronnie was without any doubt the authority in our home, and I did not come up against him. And if we disagreed on an issue, we went off and we came to resolve among us, and we provided a united front. And so I think consistency in discipline, and the fact that he was the leader of our home and he would have the final say. I think we just, how shall I say this? We lived a normal life, and we lived a balanced life. And I think our children knew from watching us what was important, and what the things that we place value on were, and that came through. And so we just tried to live not perfect, but authentically in front of our children, and I think some of that paid off.
I agree. Pastor, when it comes to discipline in the home, can you share with us kind of what that looked like in the Floyd home concerning Josh and Nick?
That's been a long time ago. Wow. Well, first of all, I don't know if I have a proactive approach to that other than what she said about consistency. But I do think the boundaries have to be clear. And I think a lot of parenting today, boundaries are unclear. Kids get to go in and out of the boundaries all the time. And, parents forget, it appears to me that today parents forget that they are endowed by God to raise those children, and that they are the leader of that home and not the child. And they're not running for most popular parent. They're running to raise their child rightly, where that child can be responsible and make a choice one day in life. I think too many people are trying to act like they're politicians, and I don't mean that negatively, using that word, but they act like they're running for a political office rather than simply doing what they've been asked to do. You look at our situation, prayer. You know, we prayed for our kids all the time, every day. Not one day did my boys go to school from kindergarten through senior high where we didn't pray for them before they left. One of us or both of us. Most of the time it was both of us because I stayed at home and studied in the mornings. And so it was brief, it was that. Secondly, the grace of God. You know, grace, it takes a lot of grace. God just favored and blessed, okay? And that's it. Some parents do this wonderful, great, wonderful things, and their children end up a little wayward. I would tell you, love them, be patient with them. God owns the timetable, not you. And seize the moment when you have the moments with them.
So both of you have transitioned from being parents to now you're grandparents. Poppy and Gigi have 6 grandkids. What quickly is the major difference between being mom and dad as to being Poppy and Gigi? And maybe is there sugar involved in that?
I always confess when I let them have football cupcakes for breakfast or macaroni and cheese or whatever they want. I always tell them, and by the way, they had this for breakfast. Yeah, a lot of that involves diet. But you know, one thing that's really fun is watching your kids parent their children. I've really enjoyed that. There is a real wonder in even seeing your children have their children. But I think a difference is that you don't take some of those stages of life that are challenging to them quite as hard as they do, and you just, I told one of the boys the other day, I said, you know what, they're just 3, and that's what a 3-year-old does, you know, and you just know that there's life beyond that, but when you're kind of in the midst of that, it gets a little crazy, but it's fun watching your children parent their children. That's been a blessing for me. And the other thing is, you know, you don't have them endlessly, so, you know, you can spoil them and then you send them home. That's the best part.
That's what I've always heard. That's what I fear, you know, sending my grandkids to grandma and grandpa. They're going to come back and it's going to be a nightmare. Poppy, anything to add to that?
Well, there are 2 great lights that grandparents love. We like Christmas lights and tail lights.
He's only speaking for himself, not me.
And there are
Classic.
and there are moments we've got all 6 and they're all under 7 years, 7 or under. That when they both finally leave, all 6 of them, we walk in the door, guard the door, and say, shh. Ah, yes. No, it's fun. It's fun. It's great because I don't really care what they do. And, you know, I really don't. I took Peyton to a ball game one time, and he kind of disobeyed, and I kind of patted him. So he went home, and he was like 2. I mean, I was, you know, and he told his mother I spanked him.
He told on him.
He told on me. So I ain't spanked any of them since.
Because grandkids will always rat you out, man.
Yeah.
You got to be careful. Let's
Yeah.
talk about leadership. I mean, you have led an organization like Cross Church for over 26 years. So, Pastor, let me ask you, is your job any bigger today than it was 26 years ago?
26 years ago, my job was a cupcake. And I was very young and very dumb. That's one reason it was a cupcake. But, yeah, it's changed a whole lot. You know, it's really hard to believe how much has changed. But, you know, the Lord's given us grace, and we're thankful for the privilege to be here all these years.
Miss Jeana, how has that, the job getting bigger, affected maybe the marriage between you and Pastor?
We had no idea what just adding this campus was going to do to our lives. We really didn't have a clue. And it became a total readjustment in our lives, a very good one, but it was a brand new challenge. And when you think about adding a new campus, it's more than just adding services. It's like adding a whole nother life to your already busy life. And so it was quite an awakening. And I found that I personally adjusted my schedule to just be more just available to him for whatever he needed me to do. So there were some activities that I was involved in that I resigned from, and I let some leadership positions go. And so I pulled myself out of some things specifically that I did personally, just so I could be available to him. And I keep telling him, he just keeps creating more and more monsters, and I don't know where it's going to end. But anyway, we're surviving so far.
Well, we have a sheet here that really, two pages, that talks about all the accolades that pastor has over the last 26 years in leading such a great organization like Cross Church. But I want to know from your perspective, Ms. Jeana, what makes pastor such a great leader?
He's a visionary. He's a true visionary. He sees things that I would never see. And so I think that's truly the greatest thing about him as a leader. The other thing is he sees order to everything. It's like he already knows. Once he sees it, once he envisions what could be, he can already see the steps that need to be taken to get there. And I think that's a gift of God. Everybody doesn't have that. I don't have that sense of order. I've grown a lot in our marriage because I learned early on that if I didn't get with it, we were going to have a lot of conflict, because he's extremely organized and very much a perfectionist. And I was just a little more relaxed.
Where's she getting that, Pastor?
I was a little more relaxed, a little more loose and everything, and I wasn't quite that way. But I realized, and that was where that scripture, iron sharpens iron, where it made me better. It made me become more aware of that. But that is not natural for me. It is natural for him to be visionary and to see order in everything. I said he could organize anything. It didn't matter what it was, the most insignificant thing to the biggest thing. He can organize it. Sometimes that's aggravating, but anyway.
Do you want her to go on? Should she say a few more things?
I'm done.
Pastor, you know, leading an organization like this obviously has its difficulties. What's been one of the toughest things that you've had to rebound from in 26 years, and what's been the greatest support that maybe Ms. Jeana's given you in those years?
Well, I don't like it when somebody doesn't like me, and I got people that don't like me. Some of them still come to our church too, and you know, and that's hard. I mean, and I don't want them to leave. I mean, not that I want them to leave. I don't. I like to be liked. People don't think that bothers me, but it really bothers me. People think, well, you know, because I'm a pretty strong leader, well, he's an idiot. He doesn't care. No, I care. Any leader cares. Every leader wants to be liked. I don't care who it is, from the President of the United States to whoever. I'm just thankful in a church that they don't have opinion polls like they do with the presidency. Or we don't have annual elections anymore for the pastor. I'm grateful that doesn't happen. But I think but I have learned so much from being criticized. I mean, I really have. It's made me a better leader, and I listen to criticism. And while it might personally kind of bother me a little bit, I learn from it. And what I try to do is outlive it. And hopefully God, you know, I said that years ago, and I've been here 26 years, so I guess God doesn't think I've outlived it yet, so I'm still here. And so that's one of the things. I think what Jeana does, she balances all that, you know, she's able to keep it lighter. She's already given you a little bit of insight about herself and that's good. You know, it's really good. And so I'm grateful, very grateful.
All right, now you're famous for setting people up on the hot seat. So we've got about another minute left, and I'm going to put the two of you on the hot seat. So we've got some rapid fire questions that I'm going to shoot your way, and I don't want you to think a lot about it. I just want you to answer it with the first thing that comes to mind, okay? All right, are you ready? Ready. Here we go. All right, after raising two boys, what's the one thing, Miss Jeana, that got broken in the house that you wish you still had?
Well, I just made sure that whatever they broke, they replaced. So
oh, that's a
took care
good
of that.
rule, man. Jeana, worst meal you think you ever made?
There's not one, because I'm a very good cook.
Wow, all right. Pastor, best meal you ever ate?
Oh, my wife, she's a great cook. She made me smothered steak on the last Sunday of December. It's the best thing I've had in a long time.
There you go. All right, Pastor, what do you do that you think drives Miss Jeana nuts?
At times I interrupt her.
All right, Miss Jeana. Hard to believe.
And I don't do it near as much as she thinks I do it. The problem is she talks too slow because she's from West Texas and she thinks a little slow along the way.
Wow.
And I'm already to the end.
Yeah. You're already 30 seconds in. All right, so Miss Jeana, this is for both you guys, all right, Miss Jeana and Pastor. If I put you guys in separate cars and gave you written directions to get from point A to point B, who's going to get there first? And why?
Just because he doesn't even know east from west or north from south. So yes, I do. I will get us there.
Hey, I'm just grateful I-40 goes north to south. Oh, that man. I got down.
Pastor, greatest sporting event you've been able to attend?
Famous sporting event? The best one? Wow. I've been able to attend 2 Super Bowls and 2 college national championships. I loved all 4 of them.
There you go. Miss Jeana, Pastor's favorite singer?
Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Yes. He loved Whitney Houston. He was
She's a great
deeply
lady,
grieved when
even though
she
she
died.
died with an overdose.
All right, Pastor, what's Jeana's greatest quality? It's Valentine's Day. We'll end with this. What is Miss Jeana's greatest quality?
Her greatest quality? Wow. She loves me. I mean, that takes a miracle.
You said it, not me. I'm not touching that.
I don't
is
want you to.
awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, would you help me thank Dr. Floyd and Miss Jeana today? What great insight.